Hey everyone, welcome back to the Derek Legg podcast. Just get some housekeeping over with before we dive right into this. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. Keep this podcast growing. We are growing at a very rapid rate, which is, exciting since we've been doing this about a month and a half. And I feel like I just bring some friends in and we sit down and talk, and we're getting a lot of people viewing and a lot of great comments. Keep the comments coming. Any criticism as well. Mallory and I are extremely open to that. We have made maybe a dozen adjustments off of people's suggestions, so we're open to that and keep them coming. So today we've got a good friend. Well, can you call us a good friend? That's kind of my thing, is like I'm a good friend, right? Yeah. We got Alexis Graff with us, and when I wanted to start this, we had a couple, like one event together. We had talked a little bit, and your message is kind of what we're trying to do here. So I feel like you fit what we're trying to do perfect.
Oh, good.
And so maybe let's just kind of dive in, maybe a little bit of your backstory. I know you're married, you have a few kids, and then let's go on to your mission with what you're trying to do, and then we'll just branch off from there.
My mission.
Is that all right?
Oh dear, that's a big question. Mission of what I'm trying to do. So I graduated high school. I guess this kind of goes back to when I was younger. Back up for a second. I guess I need to move. I use my hands a lot when I talk.
You're good.
When I was in 4th grade, I had anxiety, but I didn't know. And so throughout all of high school and everything, I was very anxious and sick and just super worried. And I was having headaches and just all these problems. And I'd gone to the doctors, and they all were like, oh, everything's fine. Like, I'd had an MRI in like 8th or 9th grade. They're like, everything looks good. Like, you're fine. But I didn't feel fine. Years later, I graduated high school, ended up going to college, and I just didn't know what I wanted to go into. So just starting out with my generals, I took a psychology class and just some other classes. And that was the year that I found out that mental disorders are a thing, and that anxiety and depression and all these things, I just felt so understood, like so validated. And so right as soon as I took that class, it was like, this is anxiety, like this is what I have, and like I felt like I knew like where to go with it. It was like, hey, I can like get on medication, like this is something that I don't have to live with my whole life. And if I felt like that, I knew there had to be other people out there that had been, whether they've lived with like PTSD or whatever, that didn't know what they were experiencing. And so they just felt like me, like they felt like lost, or they just felt like this was just how life was supposed to be. And so a couple years after that, I ended up going into psychology, and then I was pregnant with my second baby when I graduated, and I just took off. I just decided, you know what, one night it was like 4 a.m, and I just realized like I want to start a page, and I'm not really sure what for, but I kind of want to do something around make the uncomfortable comfortable, because I had gone to a previous course. Every week they had like someone new come and speak to us, so kind of like a podcast, I guess. They'd have someone come and speak with us, and there was a guy that came in, and he was just talking about how like everyone in America and like in the world, we're just so focused on like the shallow, like just like super level, like low level conversation and everything, and everyone's so afraid to go out of their comfort zone and stuff. And he'd made that comment of make the uncomfortable comfortable, and I remember writing that down and just being like, that is awesome. Like, I love that phrase, and I love that, like what it stands for, what it means. And so like every week in that class, I started doodling. I was just like drawing, like trying to figure out like a logo and stuff. And then one night it was like 4 a.m, and I just woke up and I was like, I have to start this, because if I don't do it, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
So I just got on Facebook right then and just like created the page, and I didn't know where I was going to go from there, but I just started. I'm like, you can't wait. You can't wait until things are perfect, until you're like, hey, I've got all these things, like let's do it now. And so I just started it, and I posted a first video, and I was just kind of like, hey guys, like I'm Lexi. I grew up with anxiety, just kind of told my story a little bit, and like hopefully this is something that everyone can relate with. Like I just want this to be a page where everyone feels like understood and validated, and so that's really where that came into play.
Okay. Well, we did an event for Nicole. Nicole's been a very common subject that gets brought
Yeah.
up on this.
I bet.
And so we did that at a dinner event for Nicole, and it's funny how things connect.
Isn't it?
I mean, I've lived here since I was 7. Were you born and raised here? Or were
I
you?
pretty much have been here since I was like 7.
Okay. And like we didn't know each other. Is your how old's your husband?
He is 29.
Okay, so he's a couple years younger than me, because I knew I'd heard his name before
Yeah.
when we got connected, but I had an employee working for me that said, I kind of told him what we were doing with the dinner, and he was like, "You've got to reach out to Lexi." And I'm like, "I don't know Lexi." And he's like, "I've got this. I'll send you the Instagram page. I'll send you this. I'll send you this." And he sends me all the information on you. So without being weird, I basically stalked you for like an hour and was like, yeah, she needs to be a part of this at any capacity.
Yeah.
And so I just reached out to you and was like, "Hey, kind of weird. This is what's going on. Would you want to be a part of it?" And you were all in.
Yeah.
So the help that you brought, the awareness you brought, you had literature, you had stickers. I still have your stickers at my store right now that we hand out. It's funny. It says, "If you're looking for a sign, here it is." And I've put a couple of them on safes that we haven't moved.
Oh, really?
And people will be like, "Oh, here's our sign. This is the one to buy."
Oh, that's awesome.
So it makes me think about you every
Sweet,
time.
That's awesome.
It's funny.
I love that.
And just from that event, we connected on that. You helped set up. You were there. And I've followed you ever since. And all your videos, that's kind of where this podcast is based around what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through stuff. We're a lot more connected than anybody thinks we are, you know. I had anxiety growing up. There wasn't a name for it when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And like my dad had some bipolar, some mental issues, but you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, yeah, my dad's kind of crazy, but no one like talks about it.
No, because you think that everyone else is normal.
Sure. Yeah. And then I remember I realized there was 2 specific friends I used to hang out at their house. One when I was about 12 and the other when I was 16. And I realized that like other people live differently. Like I was like, this is how everybody lives.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you kind of branch out and start getting in other people's circles, and it makes you realize like,
oh, my family's a little dysfunctional, or your family's a little dysfunctional.
yeah, but that's what I was going to say. Like, but everyone's dysfunctional in their own ways.
Yeah.
And so being able to talk about it, I feel makes everyone, the word I like to use is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because people will kind of jump in and, I'm dealing with this too, or my sibling deals with this, or my parents or spouse or whatever it is. I cram a lot of things into one day. And so I regularly have hints of depression and but I can feel it coming on, and I'll kind of battle with it for a minute. My biggest thing, and let me know kind of what you do. My biggest thing with it is like gratitude. Like I was having a bad day yesterday. Perfect example. Bad day yesterday. A lot of things going on. I could kind of feel it coming on, and my trigger is I'm tired, but like I'm really not that tired.
Yeah.
But it's kind of my excuse, and I know that I'm starting to build it up, and so I get home, and my 9-month-old baby we were just talking about before we started, he sees me, and I stop and look at him, and he just starts crying, just full on, crying. Then he turns, gets on his hands and knees, and just motors right up to me. And I pick him up, and like right when I put him to my chest, he just like laid his head down, and he just relaxed on top of me.
Yeah. And
it kind of made me it kind of brought me out of that. Like I was like, yeah, I have so many things going on, but like this is what matters.
Yeah.
What are some things that you maybe deal with if you'll be open with us, and
I feel like it's a constant roller coaster, I swear. Sometimes I feel like I'm like doing really well, and I'm like having a great week, and like the kids are good, and like I'm not yelling all the time, my house is clean, and like we're just having fun. And then there's other times that I'm like, I'm so tired, like you said, and it's not really that I'm tired, but that's my excuse. I wake up in the morning and it's like I can't get out of bed. I'm just so tired. I just want to sleep. And then from there, it's like, we'll just hang out at home today. And then after a few hours of like watching movies, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like we wasted our day. We didn't do anything. I feel so lazy. Like I've got dishes, I've got laundry, I've got all the stuff I need to do, and I get overwhelmed with how much I have to do. So I just like don't know where to start, so I don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. And so I do notice all the time that I'm just like, I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired.
That's my
and
thing.
it's like, I'm really not tired. Like I'll go lay down with my 1-year-old to get him to take a nap, and I'll fall asleep with him. And it's like, I really wasn't tired. It's just I have so much anxiety that like when I lay down and get that break for 1 second, like I can just sleep, and my sleep is like my only escape from life. That's my only escape from depression. So I feel like that's what I do a lot of the time. But like in the last couple of weeks, I really have been struggling as like a stay-at-home mom. I've just been talking with my husband, you know, I'm like, I feel like I have more potential than this. Like, I understand being a stay-at-home mom is so important, and like my kids should have their mom around, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like I have all these other like skills and things that I can be using in the world, and other people can be benefiting from me. And that sounds really bad. Like,
no,
really,
that doesn't. That's
like,
the truth.
What's the word? Like not cocky, but yeah. And so I'm just like, I just feel like it's useless. I'm just here at home, and like the kids are just crying all day and they're just fighting all day. And I don't really understand why I'm just here, you know? So I've been looking around and trying to figure out. And so I did my degree in psychology. I got my bachelor's. And then after that, I want to do substance abuse counseling.
Okay.
And that is something you don't need your master's for. And so I've just kind of been waiting, and I'm like, I can just do that when my kids are older, you know? And so now I'm kind of thinking like, hey, maybe that's where I'll start next, is maybe I will start doing like, I have like another 200 like course hours or something to gain more knowledge for like substance use. And then after that, like you do a couple more hours and like you're it, like that's it. So I'm like, well, I just keep putting it off. I'm like, I'll just wait until my kids are older. But now I'm like, you know, like it's not a big deal. Like just because I'm a stay-at-home mom doesn't mean I have to choose between my kids or my career. Like you can do both and be both and do it well. I feel like so many times people are just so worried and so caught up on like, you should be a stay-at-home mom, like you need to be with the kids and da-da-da. And you're right, that is very important. And I see that. I understand how important that is. But at the same time, like you do have other skills and things to bring into the world that other people need. And so that's where I've kind of been lately. So.
Okay. I like that. And it's not, I don't know if your word would be like conceited, but it's not that. I mean, I you're right. So it's not cocky or conceited if you're right. That's how I feel.
Well, I feel like we all have our own skills and things that we bring to the world. So I feel like if we are confident in that and know that we're valuable in that way, that we'll succeed at whatever we do.
Yeah.
Because we just know like, hey, this is what I'm meant to do, and other people are going to benefit from me and my skills and whatever. And it's like same thing, like I'll benefit from their skills. So.
Yeah. How many kids?
How many kids do I have? 3.
Okay.
3 boys.
I was going to say 3, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
And your youngest is how old?
1.
1.
So 1, 3, and 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've only got 1. You're a little ahead of me.
Oh, it's busy. Wait a while.
Well, tell us about Make the Uncomfortable Comfortable.
Okay.
How long you've been doing it? How can people get in touch with you, follow you? I know you're on Instagram. That's how I track you. Mm-hmm. Maybe kind of run through that a little bit.
Okay, so Make the Uncomfortable Comfortable will be 4 years old this next month. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram, mostly Instagram. Like that's where I'm usually at. But both of those places, I don't really have like an end goal for it. I just started it. Like I said, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I just felt like it was something I needed to do.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a place where people can just relate and just realize like, oh my gosh, I'm normal. Like somebody else is like me, and they just feel less alone, because we just all go through things, you know, and we all think like, gosh, I'm so alone. Like I don't have anyone to talk to. And sometimes it's hardest to reach out to people we know and say, you know, like I'm struggling or whatever. So I feel like it's kind of it's a way to make friends, but at the same time, like people still feel like anonymous because they don't really know me.
It's like a neutral ground.
But they can still like come and talk to me and be like, oh my gosh, like I'm so glad you said this or whatever. Like this is how I'm feeling, and it just helps put like light in the world from these like dark experiences that we have, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like when Danny was on, he was talking about what kind of triggered him into getting into this was someone had commented and said, man, your life's so perfect. And he's like, dude, if you had any clue with everything I'm dealing with. And that's what I like about what you're doing is you're like, hey, I'm in the grind every day too. I got 3 kids. I'm trying to, I mean, are you like actively on
I try to
every
be,
day?
not every day.
Right.
I used to be, and it gave me a lot of anxiety because I was so worried about posting and trying to be consistent. And finally, I was like, you know what, like that's not worth my mental health to just try to like explode on the internet. You know, I'm like, I can't do that. So I'll get on and like I'll do stories probably every day or like every other day, and like I'll probably post like once a week, maybe twice a week.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, I was like, I know you're on there quite a bit, but I don't know if it's every day.
No.
But it gets on there. Like you made a post. It might have been today or yesterday, and you were like, how you're changing up your going to McDonald's and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I thought like, well, that's a good idea. Like when you kind of get in this groove, and I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I mean, I think you just classified it as like hinting some depression, getting in the same mood, and then changing up your routine. And I mean, my routine changes by the hour. So
yeah.
I mean,
and as a stay-at-home mom, it doesn't. Like you have you basically roll your own schedule, like whatever you want. So
yeah,
it's nice to give it a little change up, and I feel like doing some things that are a little bit different than you normally do kind of bring you out of that depression.
Sure.
It's like, you know what? I feel like let's do something, like let's go to lunch, let's do something that's like enjoying life. Because if life were to end tomorrow and like we were just in our normal routine, like I would feel bad that we like didn't do anything and that I didn't really spend like quality time with them. So it's like I enjoy doing these things now because it's like I need to remember, like if something happened tomorrow to any of the kids or to me or something, I would like to have lived as if like the next day were the last day. So I just feel like sometimes that helps. Other days it doesn't, but sometimes it does. It's just to know that, like, let's go to the park, let's go swimming, let's do something. And it might be a lot of work at that time, but then afterwards, like, I can think of, like, how happy the kids were and how much fun they had rather than being at home all day. And it's just sometimes you just need to put it into their perspective for a second.
It's a good change up for them. Tell me your thoughts on this. I've done a lot of research on this. I've had anxiety most of my life. I didn't know what it was. Till maybe 10 years ago. But I don't really have panic attacks. I feel like I take that anxiety and I usually turn it into motivation or making it drives me, I guess is a better way to put it. I've done a ton of research into it. And what I feel like what I have is like a high functioning anxiety. Have you heard about that? Yeah. And I turn a lot of it in, like, you go down the list of it, and I don't even know if it's like a clinically
like a diagnosis.
Yeah, I don't know if it is or not.
I don't know.
But I read through a lot of what it is, and I'm like, that's me. Like that's what I deal with. One of my siblings, they had an accident right out of high school, and he had panic attacks. Yeah, you know, full on panic attacks. I mean, I've probably had 3 in my life, but I live with like a deep anxiety every day. And I mean, just running both mail routes, making sure they're taken care of. And those, thankfully, after 12 years, are finally, I've got them hired out. They kind of run themselves. Yeah. And then the store, our retail store, holsters, and then now the resale business that my mom and I are starting. Yeah. And I'm just like, I get even like my favorite part of the day is when I close the store. And I'm there for like an hour and a half by myself. And I just have time to like go through everything and kind of decompress. And it's a thing that I have to do before I go home. Yeah. You know, like yesterday, I was just kind of like, all right, like I've clicked through every tab on my internet 3 times and nothing's changed. I guess I'll go home now, you know? And then I go home and Will has that reaction to me. And it really kind of, and I guess it's happened once or twice before where he'll see me and be like, ah, you know, and I go grab him. Yeah. But like just the way I felt like when I picked him up, like he had like this panic when he saw me, right? And comes over to me. And when I pick him up, he just like, oh, everything's right. Yeah. Everything's right in the world now. Mom and dad are both right here, you know? Can you give me a story or two about one of your kids or maybe something like that that you felt?
Let's see. I honestly can't think of it. Usually I feel like my husband gets home and I'm like, I'm so glad you're home.
What does he do for work?
He manages loan officers at Patriot Home Mortgage.
Oh, nice. So he's probably super busy right now.
He is. So he gets home late sometimes and I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad you're home. Here you go. Take the kids. Yeah. I'm going to go.
So what about when you were doing the high school stuff and you were kind of speaking. Did you have any
Yeah.
experience with any of that? Because, I mean, that's how I got in touch with you, is you obviously made an impression on some kids in those high school classes.
So like we talked about, I love how things just coordinate, you know, just in life. Like some people just think like, oh, they're just coincidences. And I'm just like, they're so not coincidences.
Yeah.
So I started my page, and then probably a year after that, I started speaking at different high schools in St. George. I'm like, you know, like we can just do like a mental health hour. And
How'd
just
you get into that?
I just started messaging, like, I think I just messaged like the principals, and like I graduated from Pineview
Sure.
in 2014, and then I got married that year. So like a couple years later, like they still knew who I was. So I reached out to my principal, and I was like, hey, like I'm going to do this. Is this something you'd be interested in? And he was like, yeah, like let's do that. Here's like the health teachers' numbers or whatever, and you can kind of coordinate with them, and that way I could do like a health class, like one of their days or whatever. And so I did that, and I went to probably 4 or 5 different schools. And like you said, like that kid that was working with you, like I just remember when he messaged me, or when you messaged me, I'm like thinking, okay, I don't know this guy, but he's reaching out to me about this Nicole. I'm like, is he from St. George? Like, are we in the same area? Like,
I should have classified
I'm like,
that.
shouldn't I know who this guy is? Like, I feel like I've been here for long enough, you know? And then I was like, how did you like find my page? And you tell me about Emmett. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the fact that one student remembered that I had come to their class and talked about this, of like all the, let's see, I don't know, probably 200 kids that I taught. One of them like still continuously follows me and like knows who I am. I thought that was so cool. It was like, I told my husband, and I was just so excited. I'm like, this is so cool. Like this whole thing just came into like my hands, and I have no idea what I'm going to do or any of it, but I'm so excited that he reached out to me.
Yeah.
Like I remember reading everything about Nicole. As soon as you sent me that, I was like, okay, he is from St. George. Like this is more like close to home, you know?
Pineview 07.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I like start reading things, and I'm like looking, I'm like, I swear she looks so familiar. Like I don't know her, but I just felt like this was something I needed to do. And this sounds really stalkerish, but after so when you had reached out to me, she was still in a coma, I think.
Sure,
and I think she was in a coma for another probably couple weeks.
Even through the dinner. Yeah, she was still in a coma during the dinner.
Yeah.
So that would have been, probably 2 weeks.
Was this October?
Yep, 1st of October.
And so she was out for a while, but I remember just being like, oh my gosh. And I had never heard of Webb Hill. So you told me that, and I'm like, I don't even know where that is. So I looked it up, and I'm like, okay, I've seen that before. I've seen it plenty of times. And I actually drove up there, and I was just like sitting there, like I was walking around, and I just was like feeling for Nicole. Like I don't know her. I'm like, she's in a coma right now, but I just remember just going up there and just like praying and just being like, this is so, like I can't imagine being at a point that you're so depressed and so down that you're just like up here just thinking like, I would be better off not here, you know? And I just remember feeling just so strong up there. Like I just was like praying, like almost like talking to her, like, Nicole, like just I hope you're okay. Like I hope like you feel loved, you know? And it was such a strange experience because I'd never met her. I'd never met her family or anything. But I just felt like this was something that I needed to be part of to make, I don't want to say make more normal, but like talk about that uncomfortable, like someone committing suicide, because it happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially in your own town, like that's something that I feel like everyone should be getting in a group and like, let's do something together. Let's support each other. And so I was just really proud that that was something that was taking place, that you had taken that upon your shoulders to do this for Nicole, because I'd seen like other parents and stuff and kids in high school who had lost parents and whatnot. And I just remember being like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know, do I say something to them? Do I not say something to them? Like, is that uncomfortable? Is that awkward? Is that too much? But at the same time, you want them to know that like someone's thinking of them and someone loves them and cares for them. Because when something like that happens, the people who were in that family or in those friends and everything, they're affected so deeply. And it's so important that they know that other people are thinking about them and praying for them, because right now they're in a hard spot. And so that was just something I'm so grateful that I was able to be part of. It was amazing to just see the love that everyone had. Everyone just came together for Nicole, and I love like looking at her her website and seeing like how many views it's gotten.
Yeah.
Like her story just went like viral. It just went everywhere, and I just remember thinking, this is so neat. based on her experiences and the things that she's gone through, those were so difficult. But she's brought so much light to so many people just by sharing her story and every part of it. Like, she's so vulnerable and open, and I just love that so much. I love people who are vulnerable because they're authentic.
Yeah.
You can't get any more authentic than that. And so, yeah.
Say, with her and with you and a few other people that influenced me with this, I mean, between you, Nicole, Tyson that's been on the podcast, and a couple other people that were smaller influences, but that's what made me think, like, all right, we got to get out and do this. And when I kind of pitched this with Mallory, she was like, yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to get into this. And part of my thing, like, the purpose of the podcast isn't, suicide, or it's not mental health, or it's not guns and hunting, it's not, I mean, I'm into a lot of things, but at the same time, like Webb Hill, I think my dad committed suicide on Webb Hill. There was Nicole that attempted. I think we had, I could be wrong. I don't want to say a name and have him still be alive, but I know that there's like,
they're like, no, I'm right here.
I know. It's like, oh, Derek just suicided me, right? But I'm pretty sure there was 2 or 3 kids in my high school class that committed suicide on that hill. And so, and then that's why where I took it was straight to our Pineview graduating class, and was like, I mean, everybody's got some sort of, we at least know where it is. If you're not tied to it at some point. I mean, but there was kids in high school, that was like Make Out Hill, like you would go up there and you would climb up on like you can't now because there's like cameras and everything all over it now, but you used to just drive up there and you just like climb up on top of those little satellite buildings. I think you can even climb up some of the big antennas. I'm scared of heights. I don't do that, but so everyone kind of knows where it is and has an idea of it. And then obviously with my father, I felt like I was kind of tied to it. Yeah. And at his funeral, it was so taboo to talk about mental health or suicide that I was like, this is wrong.
So how long ago did he pass?
Just a couple years.
Okay.
We hadn't talked for years before it happened. But I want to say maybe 2018. I think it was just a year or 2 before Nicole. Wow. So it was like fairly fresh for me. But just the talking about it. And so that's kind of what the podcast for me is kind of what your thoughts are with what you're trying to do. It's like, hey man, there's a lot of people out here that deal with the same thing. There's people out here that deal, like, you're not alone. Yeah. I guess. I can sit here and talk circles around it, but you're not alone. And there's people you can reach out to. And you would be a perfect person because you're neutral. And if someone wanted to reach out onto your Instagram, I would imagine you would welcome that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm trying to kind of get into a groove of some questions towards the end, just to kind of ask everybody. Okay. Tell me, what is your definition of happiness?
Happiness. I feel like we are happy. So let me back up for a second.
Sure.
There was one point that I posted on my page. Like, what if depression was created so that we knew we weren't on the right path yet? Like, and I remember some people being like, how can you say that and stuff? But it's like, I've experienced it too. So it's not like I'm just taking something that I don't know, like, from a topic, But I just feel like sometimes we don't know where we are. We think, okay, I want to do this, and maybe we're not going the right way we should be going. Maybe we're supposed to be doing something else, but we chose this, and maybe we're not happy right now because we're not using our full skill set. Like, we're not gaining that full potential because we're not quite where we should be, Okay. So I feel like that's where my happiness comes in. Like, I feel so happy when I get on and I post and I'm really vulnerable and I just like talk about like my life and things that are going on, and someone comments and is like, I'm so glad you posted this, like I needed this today or whatever. Like, it just gives me like a sense of relief. It's like I feel so happy knowing that other people are just benefiting. Yeah. Like,
well, I'm a 250-pound dude with a beard, and I'm not a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. But even when you post stuff, I get on there and I'm like, she's got it. Like, in just being vulnerable with it all, which you are.
Well, and like you were saying a few minutes ago, like, like you said, this podcast isn't just focused on mental health or suicide or whatever. But that's what's so important about like my page, because originally when I first started it, and it was like, okay, how do I get this to grow? How do I become viral? And it was like, okay, I need to figure out my niche. That was my constant thing, was my niche. Like, what category is this for? Is this for like older women, younger women, like just women with just women with kids? Like, I just didn't know where to go. And so, like you said, like I have probably 75% of women following me. But I have some from high school, some that are our moms, some that aren't moms yet, or that are like older moms. And then I have like men that are your age, like older men, younger men. Like it's a variety.
Wait, am I in the older men category?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. No, I've had some interesting people respond at like 60 and they're like, oh, cute. I'm like, oh, that's weird. But it's just good to know that I don't need to choose a niche. Like I know that's important, like in the business side of things.
Sure.
But anyone with any problem can find something on my page that they're just like, hey, me too. Like, that's me too, and I totally understand you, and we can just relate. Like, we can just, like, have a conversation based on what that post was about or whatever. So overall, happiness is just, I think, just being who you are, loving who you are. And I know, especially with women, it's so hard to, because of the changes we go through, just as we gain weight, as we have kids, everything just changes and our mindset changes, and we think, okay, we need to look like this, we need to be skinny, we need to be X, Y, and Z. And I just think it's so easy to constantly get in that mindset of how can I eat better, how can I be better, like how can I look better so that everyone wants me, you know? And
girls definitely have a lot more pressure than guys do.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, when I'm not working, I'm in a t-shirt and basketball shorts, you know?
Yeah.
And actually, I was in that for most of my life until about a year ago. I started doing these golf shirts, and I'm still undecided. But
see, I was like the opposite. In high school, I was like, I didn't have very much confidence in high school. So I was like always dressed up. Like I wore heels probably 85% of the time to school. Like I just wanted to look good and stuff. And like now as I'm a mom, I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like my hair's in a bun 99% of the time. Like I throw on some like gym shorts and a t-shirt and I'm just good to go. Now that I have days where I'll like take my kids and we'll go to lunch and do things, you know, because I'm like, if tomorrow were to be the end of the day or the end of the world, like would I be happy with the way that I lived? Same thing goes with women and like our looks and everything. I feel like, how happy are you really going to be if the world ends tomorrow and all you did was diet your whole life, or like constantly cut out calories, or constantly cut out like sugar, like your favorite foods and everything? Like, did you really enjoy life? Part of enjoying life is doing everything, but what's the word? Moderation.
okay, yeah.
Like you do everything in moderation. Like that's just, I feel like that's another thing where happiness comes from, is just you can't go one way or the other. Like enjoy life, enjoy what you want to do, eat what you want to eat, like exercise, be healthy. Like you can do all that at the same time. It's not enjoy food or have a great body.
Right.
And so I just think the more that we realize like we're more than our looks. We're not just here for our pretty faces and our bodies and everything. Like we're here, like our spirits have these amazing qualities that everyone has them.
Yeah.
And I think the world gets so caught up in looks and everything that's just doesn't matter.
Right.
If the world were to end tomorrow, would you be happy today living how you live and being who you are? If you're not living 100% you, like I know that's so hard to say. Just get out of the shell, you know? Like it's so easy to say, I mean. But
it's hard to do.
Yeah. Like in high school, like especially as kids in high school, I just think like everyone's so worried about what everyone thinks of them and stuff. And like I remember being there. I remember just being like so worried. Like school dances, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I can't dance. Like someone's going to laugh at me. And I just remember being so uncomfortable. And now I'm just like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like I'm married now. I've got kids. And I just feel like I can be me. Like I'm me more now than I ever was in high school. And I just feel like once we all realize like how much we bring to the world and how beautiful we are as individuals, like we don't need anyone's approval. Yeah. Like we should just work on what we can, what we want to make better in our lives, and everything else just falls into place.
Yeah.
Like if you have a passion for something, go for that, because I feel like that passion is something you're supposed to be in life. And so.
Well, and I'll touch on that too. I think you're right in all of that. I think the one, like, caveat's not the right word, but like the one thing to go along with that would be, yeah, be happy, do the things that make you happy, but make sure you're moving forward, you know? I mean, like,
even if it's only one step at a time.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like make a whole career change the next day. Make a step towards.
Be better than yesterday.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, be happy. My joke's always, so if you could have a 6-pack or a full tub of ice cream, what flavor of ice cream would you have?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Or they do it with tacos or donuts or whatever. Thanks for coming in, though. This is fun.
I'm so glad we were able to actually get to know each other, since we
I
really
know.
just chatted for a few minutes at Nicole's dinner.
Right.
That's really all we had in common.
Have you met Nicole?
No, I haven't.
All right. We're going to do a dinner at my house. We'll have Nicole and you guys over.
Okay.
And we'll do it. We'll set it up.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Again, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. I'm glad you were able to stop by and give us I think we're about an hour in, about an hour of your time. We're still doing this every week. I've lined up the entire month, and a couple into next month. We've got some heavy hitters coming up along with Lexi. So keep on staying tuned. The subscribe thing's kind of nice because it alerts you when we upload another one. So make sure you're doing that, and we'll see you guys next week.